Hey guys, I'm Tom from the Lens Depot. Today we're going to be talking about how to balance a Glidecam. This is going to apply to both the HD 4000 or the 2000. Now let's get started. I have both of them here. This is the HD 2000. This is going to support anywhere from about 2 to 6 pounds, and then we have the 4000 that will support up to about 10 pounds. Now when you open them up, component-wise they're going to come with the same thing. We have 10 weights on the bottom. Let me take this apart here. We have the shaft for the base and then the top shaft. We'll talk a little bit more about that once we start getting into the balancing. We have the top quick release plate, which we'll go to get into in just a second here. And then we have the hardware. So with an HD 2000, because it's mostly designed for smaller cameras, you're going to get 2/4 20-inch bolts as well as 2 washers. With the HD 4000, you'll get those 2 washers, and you also get 2 3/8 inch bolts as well as 2 3/8 inch washers. So when you have the Glidecam, the first thing you're going to want to do is mount your camera. Now the best place to mount it is you want the entire center mass of whatever camera that you're using roughly at about the top of the shaft here. We're going to be using a Canon 6D with a 35 1.4 lens. So we have it set all the way to the furthest hole in the back. This I've found works the best for most DSLRs. Unless you're using a shorter prime, then you might need to move it forward at least 1 or 2 threads. Again, you want to try to have the DSLR in the center mass. So before you mount the camera on, which these have screws that pull out, so you'll remove those. Now, as far as the weights on the bottom, this is going to kind of vary depending on the camera that you're using, but from what I've found, for most DSLRs, you really only need 1 weight on each side. Anything more than that tends to be overkill unless you're using a slightly heavier setup. So once we have that set, what we're going to want to do is push these bolts in on the side and then screw them in to attach the Glidecam. Once you have your camera installed, it's important that you put anything that you're going to be using while you're recording on the camera. If you start to add things after you have the Glidecam balanced, you're going to need to rebalance it. So this is everything from as trivial of an item as a memory card, a battery, a filter. Any adjustment you make will slightly throw off the balance. So here we are. Once we've got the camera on there, on the left and right side, there's 2 bolts. I already have them loosened, but you want to make sure that both of those are loosened. And then there's also an additional 4 bolts on the underside that you're going to want to loosen up. Once you have those loosened, you can start making your Glidecam balancing. Now this is one that I've already kind of got pretty close. You can see though, I'm leaning a little bit forward. So to make basic adjustments on the Glidecam, you have 2 different items. This one here on the back is going to adjust your forward and backward. Basically, if you turn to the right, it's going to move the entire platform forward. If you move to the left, it moves the platform back. Then we have this on the side here. This one is going to do the same thing, but for your left to right adjustment. If you move to the left, the whole camera moves to the left. If you move to the right, then the whole camera will move to the right. So we'll go ahead. We're going to kind of make sure that we're pretty good. So I'm leaning a little bit to the back. I'm just going to turn this ever so slightly to the front. I went a little too far. And then pretty good. I'm going a little to the left here. So this is all set. Now, It's really good if you have a flat surface that you can put this down and make these adjustments and then pick it back up. Another option a lot of people like to do is you can also use a light stand to make the adjustments. You just want to make sure that whatever stand you're going to be using is heavy duty enough that it can support the weight of the Glidecam rig that you're going to be using. And if it doesn't, you want to make sure that you have some sort of counterweight or sandbag on the bottom just to kind of help support that. So you can see if I let go of this, that this gives me a pretty good idea. I'm going to just go ahead though, I'm going to turn this a little bit to the left. So I should start leaning. You can see that this leans back if I really turn that to the left. So we'll go back and we'll get this about centered. Still going a little bit. Okay. So once you have the top set, what you're going to want to do, of course this is going crazy now. All right. Once we have the top set, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to test the drop time. Now the drop time is basically to show that you have enough weight on the bottom. So I'm going to raise this up a little bit just to kind of illustrate. To do the drop test, what you want to do is you want to hold the camera at about 90 degrees here. And your timing to get the drop to go from here to here, you want to have it at about roughly 3 seconds. So if I drop this, this is probably going to be a little bit too fast because I have this shaft extended a little too far. So we'll drop it. 1001. Yes, you can see that that's way too fast. So what you can do, if your drop time is too slow, you need to raise the shaft. If the drop time is too fast, then you need to lower it. So we're going to lower this here. And we'll test it. And here we go. 1001, 1002. So we're still a little bit too short on the time. So we'll drop that a little bit. All right, now we're going to try it. 1001, 1002, 1003. So that's pretty much about the right time. You know, you can tweak this to your preference. Some people do prefer a little closer to about 2 seconds. It's just a matter of preference. I've found that 3 seconds works the best. Once you have your drop set, you might need to make some tweaks here on the top. I'm going to move this a little bit further to the back. And then we should be set. So the way you can tell if you have a balanced Glidecam is when you move this forward and back, that this isn't rocking at all. Same thing if you're going left to right, that you don't have any sort of rocking. Once that's all set, then comes the real tricky part, handling the Glidecam. What usually works best is you want to have your hand grab with the fingertips and just kind of hold this and very lightly turn it if you're trying to do any panning. This is probably going to be the most difficult thing, even more difficult than the balancing, is getting the hang of this. It does take a lot of practice, so if it's your first time using a Glidecam, I would usually recommend buffering your rental by about a day or so, just so you can get some practice. And once that's all set, the last thing that you want to do, very important, is you want to tighten these bolts down, so that way you don't get any sort of slipping when you're using the Glidecam. And once that is locked, we are all set to go and we can start shooting. So that's going to do it for today. If you do have any questions, feel free to leave a note in the comments, or you can always visit us online at Depot.com. Thanks again for watching.